So let us start. So welcome to the first class of vector calculus. So let us start with the introduction. Right. So first let me list down the syllabus. Scalar and vector fields. Differentiation of vector fields. Differentiation of vector fields. And scalar fields. Gradient divergence curl in Cartesian and cylindrical coordinates Cartesian and cylindrical coordinates, higher order derivatives vector identities and vector equations, So applications to geometry. In that, curves in space Serret and Freinet formulae Gauss and Stokes theorem. Gauss-Stokes theorems and Green's identity. Green's identity. Yeah. So this is the complete syllabus actually what we are going to discuss as part of our vector calculus topic. So in that actually, this is actually very small syllabus like complex analysis. So in case of complex analysis also the syllabus is pretty short. Even here also the vector calculus actually, this is actually one of the easiest topic we can think of. So but it involves some understanding of the geometry and some understanding of a little bit of triple integrals and double integrals, right? So you have to be aware of the double integrals and triple integrals. Along with that actually you have to be aware of the coordinate system. So these are the prerequisites for this particular topic. And then once you are aware of it, then actually you will be easily understanding each and every aspect of this particular syllabus. So here actually the books actually, so maybe actually you can follow Krishna series or BS Gravel. So I personally prefer actually BS Gravel. So it covers most of the aspects. So, or actually Krishna series also one of the good book, but actually large number of examples are there, but the standard is actually a little bit lower than what we study in BS Gravel. But still actually both are actually equally good books. So Krishna series and BS Gravel, right? And the weightage is actually as usual, actually every topic actually is not less than 40 marks, right? So every topic you can think of not less than 40 marks. So sometimes actually 50 marks. So like that actually the weightage is going to vary from 40 to 50 marks for each and every topic. So even in the vector calculus as well, right? So here actually when we try to discuss this topic, so here actually scalar and vector fields. A scalar field, first of all actually we need to understand what is a field. A field is nothing but a physical quantity, so which will be having its influence everywhere. Then we call that there is a field that is present over there. So a practical example is the gravitational field. So gravitational field is there everywhere on the earth. So here actually if I leave this chalk piece here, it is going to fall down, and even if I go to some other place and then leave the chalk piece, there also it will fall down. Why? Because so the influence of the gravitation is there everywhere. Now such kind of quantities are studied as part of these fields. So a field is nothing but a physical quantity which is having its influence everywhere, right? So or actually the domain is specified where the influence is present, right? So that kind of fields we call as the fields. And then that field, there are two different kinds of fields. One is the scalar field and there is the vector field. A scalar field is nothing but, suppose actually if you are able to specify the equation phi of x comma y comma z. So this is a field. So this field we call as the scalar field. So a potential field is nothing but the scalar field. Why? Because it is a function of x comma y comma z, but there is no direction associated with this. So this is what is the scalar field. So a scalar field actually will assume different values depending upon its position. But the vector field actually, along with its value, it is also associated with its direction. For example, so F is a field which is a vector field which can be expressed as phi of x comma y comma z I plus psi of x comma y comma z into j plus xi of x comma y comma z into k. So this is a vector field. Here if you notice, depending upon the location, there is a component of the force in the I direction, there is a component of the force in the j direction, and there is a component of the force in the even the k direction as well. So all the three different directions actually at that particular location is having its own influence. So this field is a vector field. So where the magnitude is changing as well as the direction is also changing depending upon its position. This kind of field we call as the vector field, and this is a scalar field. Now actually we are going to define a vector operator which we call this as the del. So del is defined as I dou by dou x plus j dou by dou y plus k dou by dou z. So this is a vector operator. This vector operator can be operated in different ways for different kinds of fields. So there will be a straightforward multiplication with the scalar field which we call as the del phi. So that means this vector field can straight away multiply with this scalar field which we call as the del phi. But when it is coming to the vector fields, you can do the multiplication in two different ways, either del dot f or del cross f. Now the study of our vector calculus is completely dealt with dealing with this operator for this kind of fields, both the scalar and the vector fields. So this is the complete study and its various applications that we are going to study as part of this particular syllabus. Got it? Here actually scalar fields and vector fields are defined in this manner. Once we define this, so this del actually is operated on a scalar field. For example, del phi, if you say that del phi is nothing but, so phi is operated on this, so it is going to be dou phi by dou x times of I, dou phi by dou y times of j, and dou phi by dou z times of k. So this is how actually you can operate as del phi. So a scalar operator, so a vector operator operated on a scalar field, and this is what is defined as the gradient. So this is called as the gradient. The English meaning of this gradient is nothing but the slope. In case of two-dimensional vector, so we say that dy by dx, so this is x-axis and this is y-axis. Let us say y is a function of x. If this is the curve, then the gradient is defined as the slope of this, which we call this as dy by dx. So this is nothing but the slope of the function y is equal to f of x if it is on a two-dimensional coordinate system. But the same gradient, if you want to find it out in case of a three-dimensional field, then actually the functional change, so you can generalize this definition as the functional change when there is a change in one particular variable. So here actually, as there are three different independent variables are there, now the function is phi, this functional change in the direction of z, the functional change in the direction of y, and the functional change in the direction of x. Now all the changes are happening in three different directions which are mutually perpendicular to each other. Now this del phi is nothing but the slope in all the three-dimensional manner. So this is what is nothing but the gradient or the slope, so which we call this as the del phi. That means the scalar operator, so the vector operator is operated on a scalar field where you are going to get a gradient. And exactly the same manner, a vector multiplication can only be two different formats, right? So those two different formats are either dot product or the cross product, right? Can somebody tell me why we can't do straightforward multiplication of two different vectors? Can somebody tell me why can't we multiply straightforward multiplication of two different vectors? Why we have to do this cross product and dot product? Any idea? Right? Okay, so let me explain. So two vectors actually cannot be multiplied together. Why? Because, so as there are directions that are involved, obviously actually we cannot straightforward multiplication, we cannot do that. Because suppose one physical quantity in this direction, another physical quantity in this direction. Now here actually these two are the two different vectors. Let us say this is P vector and this is Q vector. Then if you multiply these two, then actually how to consider this direction? So there is no standard way of considering this direction. So if you wanted to consider the direction or the angle between these two, because these two are actually the directional quantities, now this has to be taken care. Now the multiplication actually in case of scalar, why we do the scalar multiplication is there is no direction that are associated with the scalars. That means suppose if you take the mass and if you take the density, if both are constants, then actually so mass and density, so both are actually the scalars. If it is scalar, you can straightforwardly you can do the multiplication or the division as if like it is the normal algebra. But coming to the vector algebra, the multiplication as we cannot do the straightforward, so this multiplication is divided into two different formats. So one format is actually a component which is along this particular direction, and another method is a component which is exactly perpendicular to this direction. Now I will give you a better example. See this, suppose actually if there is mass like this, on this mass actually I am applying a force in this particular direction. Now this is the ground. So this mass actually will be moving parallel to this particular ground even though the force is applied at an angle. Now the force which is effectively acting on this body to move in this particular direction is only the component of the force actually which is parallel to the movement. So this is F. If this angle is theta, then this force is F cos theta. And F cos theta, now actually it is making a displacement of D, then the product of these two is the effective work what we have done. So when we are doing the work, right, so obviously there are two different components that are involved. So if you quantify the work, so what is the force that you have applied to do that work? That is one important aspect. By applying that force, how much distance you move. So if there is a movement, then actually we say that that is a work. So even though if you apply 100 newtons of the force, but still actually if you are not able to move, then actually you say that there is no work is done. But if you are able to move, then actually we can say that the work is done. So you can think of two different ways. Suppose actually one person is actually trying to push the car. So he is trying to push the car for a distance of 1 kilometer, let us say. And there is one more person actually, so who has taken this chalk piece and actually he tried walking for 100 kilometers. Now both the people actually has done the work. One person actually took very small way, but actually he traveled for 100 kilometers. And one more person actually, he took the heavy work of pushing the car, but only for the 1 kilometer. Now, if you compare these two aspects, so how much work is done in each of the aspects, right? So the only best way we can think of is take the product of these two, so that actually you can get the final alignment of whichever is done more work, right? So there actually here the distance is important and the effective force that is acting on this body is also important. Hence actually you will multiply the effective force and the distance. So these two will give the work for us. Now here actually W is equal to F cos theta into D. F cos theta into D is nothing but the work what we have done. So this was defined as F dot D bar. So this is how actually we have defined. Now we call this as the scalar product. So why we call this as the scalar product is, here actually there is nothing related to the direction now. Why? Because we have taken the component of the force which is on the direction of the other vector. So this component only you have taken. So it is always meaningful that this direction and this direction are one and the same. If these two directions are always same, then there is no need to specify the direction at all. Hence actually the result what we have calculated, we call this as a scalar product, because the result is going to be a scalar now, where so direction is meaningless for this particular quantity, right? So that's why actually this product we call as the scalar product. Now we take one more example. For example, if you wanted to open the door, so let us say, so this is the door. Now on this door actually, if you want to apply the force and open the door, or actually close the door, then actually the force is applied at this particular point. Now let us say this is the radius of the rotation. So this is the radius and this is the axis of rotation. On this axis of rotation actually, this door actually trying to rotate like this. So in a clockwise or the anti-clockwise, depending upon the force that what you apply on this, so it is going to rotate either the clockwise direction or the anti-clockwise direction. Now here actually two different components that are responsible. Let us say I have applied a force but an angle of theta, and then the effective component of the force that is useful to move this door is only the component of the force which is perpendicular to this radius. So earlier actually the component of the force which is parallel to the movement actually that is useful here. But here the component of the force that is useful is exactly perpendicular. Suppose if I push perpendicularly like this, then this door will be rotated. So here actually as the angle is theta, F sin theta is the perpendicular component. And this F sin theta, if I apply at this particular point versus if I apply at the end, so both are having a different impact on this. Now the rotational component of the force we call this as the torque. So the torque we can define now as the effective force that is useful in the rotation, that is F sin theta. And then the radius where you apply, if you take more radius, it is easy to push. That means actually you have developed more torque. If you have applied the force very closer to the axis of rotation, then the radius will be less. So the effective torque developed is very less. So R is also equally important, so that actually F sin theta into R will be the effective torque that is going to be developed. So this product we call this as the vector product. Here actually if you apply the force by pushing or actually by pulling, so there are two different ways that you can think of, but still the axis of rotation is the same. In the axis of the rotation, if you push it, then if you take the axis of rotation as the upward, that is the clockwise, so anti-clockwise direction if you take as the upward axis, the clockwise rotation actually will be the downward axis. So that means if you apply the force inside, then the axis of rotation will be the top. If you apply the force outward, then the axis of rotation will be the bottom. Now actually there you need to consider the axis of rotation, which we call as the direction of the resultant, which we call this as a vector. Here if you notice, the vector direction is the n cap, which we call as the normal vector. So this normal vector is nothing but, here actually this is the radius vector, and the force whatever is applied is exactly perpendicular to this board. Then these two, radius vector and the force vector, are perpendicular to each other, but the axis of rotation is perpendicular to both the radius and the force. Hence actually this we call this as the n cap, which is always perpendicular to both the F and R vectors. So that's why the cross product is defined as torque is equal to R cross F. So R cross F is defined as R into F into sin theta n cap. So this is how actually a cross product is defined. Got it? So this is actually very easy to understand because actually these are the fundamentals that we have to be aware of when we are dealing with the multi-dimensional, that is the three-dimensional space. So here actually we are dealing with only two-dimensional thing, but the same concepts are extended even for the three-dimensional with the vector operator del. Got it? So that's what we are going to study it now. So this is exactly the reason why we have two different kinds of multiplications in case of vectors. There is no straightforward multiplication because the direction needs to be considered. As the direction that needs to be considered, there are infinite number of possible ways of the directions because all the 360-degree direction, so any direction you can think of. But actually, the essential directional components actually where it is useful for us is either the parallel or the perpendicular component depending upon the situation. In case of this actually we require only the parallel component of the force and the multiplication is also meaningful. Hence actually we have defined the dot product here. And here the perpendicular component is the only essential component that is useful in making this rotation. Hence actually we take the cross product. But rest of the directions actually you don't need to consider because those things actually will not be of any physical meaning for us. Got it? So this is how actually the vector algebra was defined with two different kinds of multiplications without having any division because that division is not having any meaning for us. Hence actually in vector algebra division was not defined but the multiplication was defined two different ways and the addition and subtractions are separately defined with the help of parallelogram law and the parallelogram law of vector addition or actually the triangular law of vector addition which you can make use to identify the addition and the subtraction of the vectors. Got it? So these are the basic fundamentals that you have to be aware of before going to this vector calculus. Got it? Any questions on this? Yeah, great. So now here actually, now the same concept actually we are applying to two different ways. So here actually, so del is defined as I dou by dou x plus j dou by dou y plus k dou by dou z. Now here this is a vector operator. So this vector operator will be giving a meaning for us. So if you apply to a scalar field, then actually we call that as a gradient. And if you apply the same thing for the vector field, so either you can do a dot or you may do a cross. So if you apply for a dot, this is what we call as the divergence. And here actually F is a vector field and del is a vector operator. So we have done a dot of it. So this one is having a physical significance which we call as the divergence. So the meaning of divergence is diverge, meaning expanding. So if the body is actually trying to expand it, it is going to occupy more and more volume, which we call this as the expansion nature, which we call as the divergence as the positive value. Suppose if it is compressing further and further, or actually it's keep on coming down, then actually we call that as the negative divergence. If you are not able to push or pull that particular volume, then we call that as the zero divergence or incompressible fluid we call specifically. Why? Because this was defined in the context of the fluid dynamics. Hence actually we always say that the incompressible fluid if del dot F equal to 0. So the compressibility nature, how much it is, that is going to have a physical significance from the mathematical operator of del dot F. Got it? Exactly the same manner. So del cross F. So del cross F actually, as there is a cross that is involved, then there is a rotational component that is there. So rotational component, how much it is present in one particular vector field, there actually this del cross F actually will give the how much rotational component that is present. So a vector field is nothing but it is going to have its own magnitude and its own direction at each and every point. Let us say there is a force field in the water which is trying to move the water, but actually that force field, right? So this is a vector field. Hence actually there is a possibility of actually it is trying to make the rotation of the fluid particles over there. So how much fluid that is going to rotate or what is the rotational component that is present over there, that you can find out with the help of this del cross F. If you notice, even in the two-dimensional also, we tried dealing with the torque, which is a rotational force. So that rotational force is coming only from the cross product. the same concept actually is applied in case of a three-dimensional field. Del cross F will give the rotational component of the force, which we call this as the curl. So this is the curl, right? Now actually these are the basic operators, and then there were certain theorems that are relating these aspects. Those theorems are the Gauss divergence theorem, so Gauss divergence theorem actually, so this is actually very easy to understand this Gauss divergence theorem. Suppose if there is a closed volume like this, and then actually if the fluid is actually continuously coming out of that particular closed volume, let us say, then whatever the fluid that is crossing this particular surface is exactly equal to the quantity of the fluid that is reduced within this particular volume. That is nothing but the Gauss divergence theorem. So that is, by common sense you can make out how much if the fluid that is coming out is exactly equal to the quantity of the fluid that is reduced inside. So these two are actually equal. That's what is the Gauss divergence theorem. So the divergence is nothing but the expanding nature. How much it is getting expanded and cross that particular surface, that is going to be onto the one side, and how much is getting reduced inside the volume, that is going to be onto the other side. Now these two are actually always equal. So this is actually mathematically written as double integral over the surfaces. This has to be a closed surface, then only you can think of a volume. So del dot F, F dot ds. So for a vector field, ds dot ds, so this is the total quantity of the fluid that is coming out, is going to be equal to triple integral over the volume del dot F dv. So this is what is the Gauss divergence theorem, right? So it is trying to relate each other. And then actually the Stokes theorem. So the Stokes theorem actually, what it states is actually, so integral F dot dr over the closed contour. So this is going to be del cross F times of ds over the double integral represented by the surface S. Now here actually this is a closed surface. So the surface is closed. Hence actually it is going to accommodate certain volume. But here in this case it is a closed line. The closed line, suppose actually a circle if you take it, that is a closed line. And on the closed line actually, if you try to calculate the line integral value, which will be exactly equal to the rotational component over the entire surface represented by that line. So that is binding one particular surface. That means actually if this is a circle and on this line integral actually if you take it, now this is the surface which is a open surface here. So here the rotational component of the field, if it is present, let us say F, then F dot dr value over the complete line is equal to the total rotational component of each and every particle within this particular surface. So these two are actually related to each other, which we call this as the Stokes theorem. Got it? So these are the basic fundamental theorems actually which are related to these vector operators, right? And then the differentiation of the vectors is nothing but operating del on a scalar field and the vector fields, and then gradient, divergence, curl, and in Cartesian and the cylindrical coordinates. So Cartesian coordinates and the cylindrical coordinates actually, it is trying to, so we need to analyze and then try to understand how it is interpreted in case of our mathematical analysis. So there actually Cartesian coordinate system is one way of analyzing, and the same thing you can do and analyze exactly the similar manner, but with a different set of variables which we call as r theta phi or actually r theta z. So all those things are actually you are trying to interpret in a different kind of language, but the same concept. So how we are interpreting with different kinds of variables, that we are going to study in case of the Cartesian and the cylindrical coordinates separately. Got it? And the higher order derivatives is nothing but when we are dealing with the multiple operators, that is del cross f or actually del dot del cross f. So like this actually, if you are operating the same operator again and again, which we call that as the higher order derivatives applied to the vector fields. So those things actually what it leads to are the identities that we are going to derive in case of the higher order derivatives there. Got it? And then vector equations and the vector identities. So these things actually with the higher order derivatives actually we are going to solve some equations. Suppose actually two vector identities are equal, then actually left side and right side are one and the same. Hence actually we will try to equate it and then find out the unknown values out of the equations there, right? And then applications to this geometry. So geometry is nothing but here curves in space. That means if there is a curve in the space, let us say a helical spring you can think of. So there actually we know the one is a curvature. The curvature is nothing but the radius that is required to draw that particular curve. For example, if I take this particular curve, let us say, and then this curve actually is constructed with different circles of different radius. That means if I take this particular piece of curve, it is going to be constructed with one radius by taking the center. And if I want to construct this piece of the curve, then I might have a different radius and different center, but still I will be able to construct this curve. Suppose if I wanted to construct this piece of the curve, I have to take here and then I have to take a radius of this, and then actually I need to calculate this particular one. Now here actually this length or the radius that needs to be taken for constructing that piece of curve, which we call as the radius of curvature. And the radius of curvature is nothing but it is defined on the xy plane, because usually a curve actually we think of only a two-dimensional curve. So a two-dimensional curve is most commonly used curve. Hence actually here actually we calculate the radius of curvature, which will give the relation between x and y for the radius that needs to be taken at this particular point to construct this piece of curve. But the same thing if you think of a three-dimensional curve. A three-dimensional curve is nothing but, let us say, spring. A spring actually is going to have different kinds of shape like this. So it is trying to rotate in all the three-dimensional space and then going up. Now there actually it is still a line. It's not a surface, but in a three-dimensional plane. Hence actually there are three different planes that are there. So that is so x is equal to 0 plane, y is equal to 0 plane, z is equal to 0 plane, or xy, yz and zx planes. So three different planes are there. Now there actually when you construct a three-dimensional curve, there will be a curvature towards the xy plane, and there will be a curvature towards the yz plane, and there will be a curvature towards the zx plane as well. So there actually you need to find out how much curvature that needs to be taken in all the three different dimensional planes. So there actually there is a new concept called the torsion that is going to come. So the torsion is nothing but again a curvature, but in a different plane. And then actually these are actually interrelated to each other. So for each and every curve, there will be a relation between the curvature and torsions. And then those relations, which we call that as the Serret and Freinet formulae, which we call, and these relations we are going to derive in case of the curves in space. Got it? So this is the brief summary of this entire syllabus, what we are going to deal in the upcoming classes. Got it? Any questions on this? Any questions? Okay, fine. So the important aspects of this particular syllabus is, most of the times actually the questions that are going to be asked is actually, one is actually, so Gauss and Gauss theorem, Stokes theorem and Green's identity. So especially Gauss theorem and Stokes theorem, these are the two places actually most of the times the questions were asked. This is one piece of syllabus that you need to concentrate more. This is one. And another is actually, so this one, curves in space, Serret and Freinet formulae. This is one section actually where the questions were asked most of the times. So these two are actually very important. After that, the vector identity. So differentiation of vectors is not asked at all. And then, so here actually the gradient, so the directional derivative actually which we can calculate with the help of the gradient. This is one section actually where you can expect some questions for 10 marks. And then, yeah, so that's all I think. So these are the three sections actually where you can focus more. So the vector identities are actually, so I think very rarely that was asked, vector identities. But most of the times actually the questions are related to the Gauss divergence theorem or the Stokes theorem, sometimes rarely the Green's theorem. And then most of the times actually you can expect the questions from the curves in space and Serret and Freinet formulae. So these things actually you have to focus more. But I will give you the trend of the UPSC is actually, it is always actually the questions that are going to be asked were the extreme points. The extreme points meaning, if you notice, if you want to understand Gauss divergence theorem and Stokes theorem, you have to be aware of all the aspects of the previous syllabus. So all this syllabus actually you have to be aware, then only you will be able to solve this particular problem. So hence actually the questions are going to be asked only from this section. So though it was listed entire syllabus, but the questions are going to be asked only from this, because this demands the knowledge of all other aspects. So the questions are framed such a manner that you need to have the complete knowledge of that particular topic so that you will be able to solve that particular problem. So such kind of syllabus only you need to pick it up and then try to solve the problems more. Got it? Any questions on this? Right? Okay. So if there are no questions, so I'm going to stop the class for today. In the next class, actually, we'll start with this, the scalar and vector fields, and then we'll try to solve some problems based on that. And then actually we'll try to complete the syllabus as soon as possible. Fine? Okay, yeah. So that's all for today. Yeah, thank you. Good night.